Yeah. All right. This sitting is resumed. Honourable Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself in the committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself in the committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Mr. Chairman, just a few words before we commit the hedge. Honourable members, I should alert you that in the schedule to the appropriation bill passed in this committee on Wednesday, the 5th of March 2025, Head 34 was passed as the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs and Investment, and Head 87, Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. These two heads no longer exist, as stated then, and elements of Head 34 are now reflected in the new heads 14 and 94, and elements of Head 87 are now reflected in the new heads 95 and 96. These new heads are now listed in the schedule as Head 14, Ministry of Finance, Head 94, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, Head 95, Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education, and Head 96, Ministry of Educational Transformation. These changes have been occasioned by the recent cabinet reshuffle and changes in ministerial portfolios and would not have been reflected in the earlier version of this bill passed in this committee. These new heads and amendments to heads previously passed by this committee now have to be agreed by this committee, as is the norm. So, Mr. Chairman, Head 11, recommitted Ministry of the Public Service in the amount of $4,768,338.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Head 11 stand part as amended.
The question is that Head 11 stand part as amended. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. We think the ayes have it.
Head 12, Parliament as recommitted and amended in the amount of $19,359,269.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Head 12 stand part as amended.
The question is that Head 12 stand part as amended. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. You think the ayes have it.
Head 13, Prime Minister's Office, recommitted and amended in the amount of $167,141,693.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Head 13 stand part as amended.
The question is that Head 13 stand part as amended. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Insertion of new Head 14, Ministry of Finance, in the amount of $185,127,000 $148.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 14 stand part.
The question is that head 14 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 30, recommitted and amended, Attorney General, $144,755,431.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 30 stand part as amended.
The question is that head 30 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 31, recommitted and amended, Ministry of Innovation, Industry, Science and Technology, in the amount of $71,825,708.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 31 stand part as amended.
The question is that head 31 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 35, recommitted and amended, Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, in the amount of $125,216,307.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 35 stand part as amended.
The question is that head 35 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 40, recommitted and amended, Ministry of Transport and Works, in the amount of $127,366,450.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 40 stand part as amended.
The question is that head 40 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 86, recommitted and amended, Ministry of Health and Wellness, in the amount of $294,467,812.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 86 stand part as amended.
The question is that head 86 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 93, recommitted and amended, Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, in the amount of $97,310,945.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 93 stand part as amended.
The question is that head 93 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 94, new head, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, in the amount of $60,765,720.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 94 stand part.
The question is that head 94 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 95, a new head, Ministry of Training and Tertiary Education, in the amount of $237,672,359.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 95 stand part.
The question is that head 95 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 96, a new head, Ministry of Educational Transformation, in the amount of $249,710,557.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that head 96 stand part.
The question is that head 96 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2, recommitted and amended.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part as amended.
The question is that clause 2 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Schedule, recommitted and amended.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the schedule be rescheduled to the bill as amended.
The question is that the schedule will be rescheduled to the bill as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee with amendment.
The question is that I do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill as amended in committee. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The Chairman of Committees has reported the passing of one bill as amended in committee. Honourable Member for Christchurch Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
Question is that this bill be read a third time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be not passed and cited as the Appropriations Act 2025.
The question is that this bill be passed and so cited. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited. That's correct.
Order number 16, sir. In the name of the Honorable Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, to move the passing of a resolution to approve in accordance with Section 5 of the Crown Lands Vesting and Disposal Act, Chapter 225, the vesting in the African Export-Import Bank of a parcel of land situate at Gemets Lane in the parish of St. Michael in this island, the site of the old Barbados General Hospital for the construction of the African Export-Import Bank, a Frexham Bank, African Trade Center.
Honourable St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to introduce this, what I call simple resolution, simple but very important resolution to this chamber, Mr. Speaker. The resolution before the House is proposing to vest a total of 2.037 hectares of state-owned land located at the corner of Bay Street and Gemets Lane in the African Export-Import Bank, will be referred to hereafter, Mr. Speaker, as Frexham Bank. And we are proposing to vest this free of charge for the construction of the African Export-Import Bank Trade Center, hotel, and offices, corporate offices or business offices. Just a little bit of history, Mr. Speaker. The African Import-Export Bank is a Pan-American multilateral business financial institution. Pan-African, multilateral financial institution, headquartered in Cairo, Egypt. Established in 1993, Mr. Speaker, The bank provides financial solutions and advisory services for the expansion, diversification, promotion, and development of intra and extra-Africa trade. Mr. Speaker, during the inaugural Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum that was held in September of 2022 in Bridgetown, here, Mr. Speaker, the Afro-Exim Bank announced plans to collaborate with CARICOM government to establish a Caribbean Export-Import Bank. And this bank envisages committing, Mr. Speaker and members, an investment of some US $700 million to support this initiative to bolster trade, some would say boost trade, and investment flows between Africa and the Caribbean. But Mr. Speaker, it went further, and subsequently in August 2023, the Afro-Exim Bank expanded the reach by opening a Caribbean office in Bridgetown, Barbados. Again, the move was aimed to bring the bank's products and services, Mr. Speaker, closer to the Caribbean business community, aimed at, again, like I said previously, to boost regional trade and investment, and strengthening ties between Africa and the Caribbean, and supporting, Mr. Speaker, mutually identified priorities. This government, Mr. Speaker, stands proud tonight of the fact that it has been able and it continues to attract regional and international agencies to have their headquarters here in Barbados. But this is nothing novel and nothing new to successive governments, Mr. Speaker. Barbados, besides its ease of access and digital and air services connectivity, excellent infrastructure, is known for making hospitality and the safety of visitors of utmost importance. And you heard that in our 2025 budget delivery, and most of our speakers, Member for St. Michael, where centrally spoke about the importance of air services connectivity. And the government of Barbados, Mr. Speaker, if I can give you a little bit of history, we host a number of international and regional agencies. We host the United Nations, Pan American Health Organization, the World Health Organization, Caribbean Examination Council, and Caribbean Development Bank. In every case, Mr. Speaker, this government provides some aspect of accommodation to be made available to these regional and international agencies. But Mr. Speaker, this resolution to vest the land free without charge is based on an established precedent set by both administrations, Mr. Speaker. And I will give you some more history. One example of this is that by conveyances dated July 28, 1983, Mr. Speaker, and November 23rd, 2009. Remember the dates, 1983, this administration was in office. 2009, the Democratic Labour Party was in office. But here what happened. The two governments conveyed one time, first in 1983, the Barbados Labour Party government then conveyed two adjoining vacant parcels of land to CDB free of charge. And as recent as March 2021, the Parliament approved the vesting free of charge of 1.4 hectares of land at Wilde in CDB, a regional financial institution. In like manner, Mr. Speaker, it is supposed to vest this 2.073 hectares of land on which this Afro-Exim Bank will construct its headquarters, and this will bring substantial economic activity to Barbados and to an area to Bridgetown that is ripe for redevelopment. Mr. Speaker, a little bit more of history. The African Export-Import Bank has 53 participating African member states and 12 participating Caribbean states that were ratified under the partnership agreement with CARICOM. And there's 6 regional offices in Africa: North, Southern, East, West, and Central Africa, respectively, with Barbados being the only office outside of the African continent. That speaks volume to us. And Mr. Speaker, you heard in the debate, you know, the whole lot of long talk about Prime Minister's travel. But bringing 150 million of investment to this country and 700 million of investment to the Caribbean and Latin America speaks volume. And who did that? The advocacy, Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, of our Prime Minister, supported by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, member for St. James Central, have seen the geopolitical strategy shifting from the west to the south. And why that is happening? You heard the member for St. James Central, he spoke tonight, and he talked about all of the geopolitical challenges that are occurring in the west and why we need to move to the south. But Mr. Speaker, let me quote Marcus Garvey, a Jamaican Pan-Africanist. And he said, Mr. Speaker, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. End of quote. Mr. Speaker, this quote by Marcus Garvey emphasizes that reconnecting with Africa culturally and economically is essential for Barbados' long-term stability and development. And we make no apology, Mr. Speaker. We heard from the member for Christchurch South during his marathon presentation day before into yesterday. He sort of criticized this vesting, and he's here tonight, Mr. Speaker. You know, and I was saying to him, the way he spoke tonight, the way he spoke yesterday, you know, other than referring to me as Lepidus in Julius Caesar, I take great offense to it, and I'm going to deal with him in good time. Because, Mr. Speaker, Lepidus was a slight man, and he was only fit to run errands. And Mr. Speaker, what I'm not afraid of my origins, where I came from. No one can say that this member for St. George South is a snob. Actually, this member for St. George South and the Democratic Labour Party has a way of trying to insult men from humble and poor origins who came up poor and who have reached success in several areas in their careers. My mother was a school meal server. My father was an artisan. I came up in Ellerton in humble and poor origins. I was the first graduate out of 3 boys. The first. But I was never afraid when Jack Frost, the most honorable who taught me at law school, drove from St. John when the rain was falling, took me to my home. I never told Jack Frost to drop me at the corner of Ellerton because I was afraid to show Jack Frost where I lived. And I was never afraid to tell anybody at all who took me home to Ellerton to drop me away from my home. They always took me to my home, and I introduced every single one of them to my parents. When I studied at St. Augustine's, I brought friends of mine to stay at Ellerton, and it ain't no mansion in Wilcox Hill. It ain't no mansion. It is just like Grisette's that the government member is ashamed to tell people or show people where he grew up. That black man over there that don't like black people, Honourable, Mr. Speaker, I took offense. I take offense to the honourable member for Christchurch South of referring to me as Lepidus and Aaron Boy. That black doesn't like black. The member for Christchurch South, he was afraid to show his colleagues and friends at Harrison College where he lived in Quetex. They had to drop him home to the top of the street and he walked to his house. And I have the evidence, he can challenge me. And you referring to me as Lepidus? He's a shame. Other leaders, several leaders, Mr. Speaker, and Thomas Sankara, Haile Selassie, Kwame Nkrumah, Ibrahim Traore, that I shook hands with recently from Burkina Faso. These are all black men who have fought to ensure that black people were empowered. And I went to the gate of no return, Mr. Speaker. I journeyed there in Africa, Ghana, and I touched the waters and the sand where our ancestors got on that boat and came. They went to Brazil, they went to all places. And Ghanaians are closely, they said that we are of Ghanaian origin, the Africans. And for the member to get up in this chamber to question us vesting land free of charge in the African Export-Import Bank. If there's one class or race that we should be proud to vest lands in free of charge, it's the Africans and black people. Mr. Speaker, I come in here tonight not angry, but disappointed in the member, disappointed in the black, the anti-black, because of his comments in this chamber about this vesting of 2.037 hectares of land in the African Export-Import Bank. But I go on further, Mr. Speaker, because he would get his chance to curse me more. The gloves are off. There are several strong historical, philosophical, economical, political arguments that the government can use, Mr. Speaker, to justify giving land to the African Export-Import Bank for construction of the trade center, hotel, and offices. Historically and culturally, I spoke about that. Barbados' deep African ancestry, the majority of Barbadians are of African descent, due to what? The transatlantic slave trade. That's why Barbados has long embraced Pan-Africanism. And this, the honourable member for Christchurch South should be ashamed to lead the Democratic Labour Party and criticize us vesting land for free to Africans. Because the late Earl Walton Barrow was a Pan-Africanist. Marcus Garvey's legacy. And he speaks about Marcus Garvey. He's read a lot of his books just because he loves to read. He reads Shakespeare and Julius Caesar. He referring to me as Lepidus. Garvey championed African economic, and he said, basically, he was a champion to ensure that African economic self-sufficiency and Caribbean African unity succeeded. That was his mantra. That was his mantra. Read it, but trust me, Lepidus had a role though. Lepidus had a key role too. He had a key role. Political and diplomatic ties. The whole aspect of strengthening and deepening diplomatic trade relations between Barbados and African nations. Reinforcing South-South cooperation. And I mentioned the whole global geopolitical strategy that we have. Hosting the African Trade Center can diversify Barbados' international partnership and less reliance on the Western economy or economic trade or economic systems. It is critical because of what is happening in the world. And when we look at economic and business justification for vesting this land free. New investments and job creations. The Africa Trade Center would attract businesses, create new jobs, stimulate economic activity in Barbados, especially in areas of construction, tourism, and trade sectors. It can give us the ties that we are forming, the South-South ties, and I can speak to it because even though I don't sleep it at night, communication has a way of keeping me connected with Ghana. Daily. And I know that the access to the African markets, the African Continental Free Trade Area is the largest free trade zone in the world. Mr. Speaker, I can go on and give you the reasons, but I'm going to allow some members to speak because I saw the Honourable member returning here. Boosting exports for rum tourism, cultural products, fintech. You know, the whole aspect of tourism, high-end tourism. You know, when these businesses, you know, the executives come from Africa, these 52 countries, what they bring with them? Foreign exchange, Mr. Speaker. Foreign exchange. But this anti-black, the member for Christchurch South, he doesn't see anything like this. You know, what we call a dilapidated site. That site was there. You know, from the first hospital that was built in 1844 there. You know, hospital was closed somewhere back in the 2000s. It was there, left in shambles, nothing doing. No better opportunity than to recognize our ancestry and what we gained from the Atlantic slave trade, than to vest this land in the African Export-Import Bank. They'll build 3 facilities: a hotel, a trade center, and their office buildings. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to be associated with this resolution as part of the government. I'm proud to lead it, Mr. Speaker, because I can say as Minister of Housing, I have led the resolution to vest a piece of Crown lands to support our ancestors and build greater ties, enhance South-South trade at a time when the world is faced with a number of uncertainties, particularly in the Western Hemisphere. Now, when you look at those West Africa countries, the small ones like Burkina Faso, and what they're doing to be self-sufficient and less reliant on Western imperialism, if you want to use that word. Less reliance. They're trying to be self-sufficient, and they're looking more to boosting trade within the African nations, uniting more, and then coming south to the Caribbean. Mr. Speaker, I will pause here and say to you, again, I'm a proud member of this party, the work that we are doing to enhance investment, to boost our foreign exchange, to ensure that we attract businesses to this country. Because while some will poo-poo, the member for Christchurch South, and we use that word poo-poo to speak about 31 weeks of import cover and foreign reserves, because he doesn't understand that when something happened in the world, like COVID, what happened that impacted us significantly. When supermarkets, when I became the Prime Minister of the member for St. Michael Northwest elected me as the Minister of Commerce
Northeast.
and the supermarket,
Northeast.
Northeast, sorry, I said Northwest, Northeast. And the supermarket owners said to me, they could not get foreign exchange in this country prior to us coming to office. They had to wait 8 months, 6 months, sat down, waiting for foreign exchange to import goods in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, I take the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to bring this resolution to vest this 2.037 hectares of land at the corner of Bay Street and Gemins Lane in the African Export-Import Bank, free of cost, to facilitate the construction of 3 facilities: the African Trade Center, the African Export-Import Bank offices, and the hotel. And with those words, Mr. Speaker, I beg this resolution now pass.
I remember, correct yourself.
I'm obliged to you, sir. I am not sure, Your Honor, which of the honorable members' mischievous colleagues wound him up. But it is very amusing to hear an honorable member quarrel in the manner that the honorable member for St. George South just did. I found it hilarious. In the manner that he anticipates my opposition to this important work that he does here tonight. I've never seen a person quarrel with himself in the manner that the honorable member for St. George South did. It's a rather short order of business here tonight. The vesting for free of these state lands, formerly called Crown lands, state lands, in Fair Republic we call them state lands. And this entity, and I learned tonight, the entity's headquarters are in Cairo, in Egypt. And that gives good cause to the honorable member for St. George South to invoke political and more particularly geopolitical arguments. And that is quite admirable. Honestly, that is quite admirable that this cultural affirmation is met in this exercise. Of course, the honorable member quite agitated. I don't understand it really. Quite agitated. I've never seen him quarrel like this before. I've never seen him quarrel quite like this. I was saying, suppose I said nothing, what would he have done? But the honorable member quarrels because it may be a matter of conscience, and lots of people do things and they're troubled. I don't know how he manages to predict my opposition to what is being done here. And perhaps he predicts my opposition because he is not without intelligence. And being so imbued with intelligence, while he invokes political and cultural and even historical arguments in support of what he does here, perhaps he feels that what he does here is not beyond some condemnation. And he may think that his cultural and historical arguments are compelling. And maybe they are quite compelling because for many years, the South-South dialogue has been an important dialogue, and he knows this, he now knows this. That has been an important dialogue that has countered imperialism, and imperialism, as he knows, and I think he may have reflected on this, is a North-South phenomenon. Modern imperialism would have had its birthplace, as the Honourable Member knows, in Western Europe, spreading itself to North America, again, North-North transactions, and colonizing Southern hemispheres, and that has been the history of the globe, certainly the modern history, because the human civilization has existed for a long, long, long time, and modern colonialism, or colonialism as we know it, is a modern phenomenon. 1492, when the gentleman set sail. But a lot of people don't know that he set sail and had some Africans with him, so that the Africans were themselves all over the world. As far as China, there were Africans who settled in China. If you read Van Sertima, the African presence in China, there's the African presence in Europe as well, and there's the African presence in South America. So that the Honourable Member's arguments are not without some merit when one considers the cultural and historical events. But one notes that the member seems troubled, and one notes that he anticipates, the Honourable Member anticipates some opposition. Now, it is not so much opposition as between the Honourable Member and myself. I would ask the Honourable Member to shed some of his anger and make some appeal to national interest here. This is an interesting time in Barbados. This is a very interesting time, and not for the first time. Those of us who know our contemporary events, let's say dating back 1970 and coming forward, that not for the first time, the alienation of lands to foreign persons and foreign entities has been contentious, and it is contentious now. And if one is to be candid, it has been contentious before. So this is, it seems to be a cycle. This is something that comes up from time to time, and one will deal with that argument. Now, I would want to correct, while I applaud the Honourable Member for having read his history and his politics, certainly in relation to this matter, I would want to introduce a legal perspective which the Honourable Member may wish to consider. He was very generous to tell the Chamber that it is not the first time that lands are vesting free of charge. I think that's the language the Honourable Member used, and that language reflects the language of the resolution itself. Yes, free of cost, the free of cost. The document says free of cost, the Honourable Member says free of charge. But I think, I don't think he intends to depart from the text. And I would think that he's using the terms synonymously. Free of charge, free of cost. Makes no difference now. That is to be trivial. So we're not going to be trivial on that. But legally, the Honourable Member noted that in July 1983, July 28th, actually, birthday of Sir Garfield Sobers, birthday. 2 parcels of land were vested to Caribbean Development Bank. And in November 2009, 1.4 hectares of land were vested to the Caribbean Development Bank. So that the 2 precedents to which the honourable member refers relate to the Caribbean Development Bank. And we all know that the Caribbean Development Bank is a bank owned by various countries across CARICOM. In fact, Barbados was a founder member of that bank, and those lands vested, the first one I believe, lands at Wilde, that was done for the headquarters. So there's a sense in which the Barbados government was investing, and the vesting of land free of cost certainly is an investment. So that the Barbados government would have been making an investment in something that belonged to the Barbados government, a bank of which it was a member. And that bank has functioned with much credibility and nobility over the years. As the term says, it's a development bank. It's there to lend money for the purposes of development across these countries. I think it had much involvement in the Caribbean Court of Justice, for example, so that it pursues projects that certainly would count as being developmental. Now, the bank here, the African Export-Import Bank, I have not seen the articles of association. I haven't seen the memorandum. So I don't know if the Barbados government is a member of that bank. So that if it is a member of that bank, if it is a shareholder, part owner, whichever term you use, all I use synonymously in this event, if the Barbados government is a member of the African Export-Import Bank, known as Afrexim Bank, then the precedent is complete. If it is not a member of the bank, the precedent loses its validity. What it means is that in the case of the Caribbean Development Bank, there's a sense in which those lands were not being alienated. And that constitutes a good pun. The lands were not being alienated when they were vested in the Caribbean Development Bank because the Barbados government was a member of that bank. In this event, if the Barbados government is not a member of the bank, those lands are in fact and in law being alienated to a foreign entity. And that is the fundamental difference between the transactions. And so, the precedent which the Honourable Member for St. George South referred to loses its validity when one considers the question of membership. I repeat, the government certainly is a member of the Caribbean Development Bank, and more so, the government is a founder member of the Caribbean Development Bank. Unless the Honourable Member can come and tell this country that the Barbados government is a member of the Afrexim Bank, then I repeat, and one has to emphasize the point, that this becomes a case of alienation of lands to a foreign entity. Now, the Honourable Member may want to retrieve his argument by saying that we don't have alien land holdings legislation, as I think Trinidad has it, and I believe at some point St. Lucia may have had it. And since we don't have that legislation, foreign entities and foreign persons can own land in Barbados, and in fact, they do own land in Barbados. So that if the honourable member wishes to retrieve the argument, if he thinks that he loses that argument in terms of Barbados's non-membership of the entity, he may seek to retrieve that by saying, look, there are several parcels of land across Barbados that are owned by foreign entities. And certainly one would have discovered in recent times that the majority of the large hotels, for example, are owned by foreign entities, if not foreign individuals. So that there's give and take, to use that loose expression. To speak colloquially, there is give and take. But this is a juncture that is, these are times that are rather different. And there's a lot of protests across Barbados as to not only the ownership of lands. I don't think people really are protesting the ownership of lands, because you can't really be protesting, you can't say they're protesting the ownership of lands if it is accepted that many of those lands have been owned for a long time. What the public is now concerned about is the use of those lands. And the public is further concerned about the use of those lands when it appears as if the proposed use of those lands are contrary to custom. And that custom is rooted in law, the land law, the right to pass and repass, as we say. And so Barbadians are protesting against the infringement of custom. Custom. And so that is the problem area. Now, as far as I understand, these lands are not beachfront lands. So that I don't think there's any question of lack of access to the beach. So we're trying to zero in on what could be the kernel, what could be the core issue here. And having considered all dimensions of the argument, what is the core issue here? The core issue here must be that you are giving precious lands to a foreigner, to a foreign entity, whatever is the nationality of that entity, whether it is North America, Europe, China, or Africa. There are those who will argue legally and tell you, look, whatever is the nationality, you're giving it to a foreign entity. Again, the honourable member argues very interestingly, and he will want to argue then, he wants to retrieve his argument again and says, look, if you say that we are giving this land away to a foreign entity, the argument then reverts to the cultural and the historical. We are giving it to an African. And there is that compelling cultural argument again. Now, will the public be satisfied with that argument? We look on the other side of the coin. It is a bank. The member will be met with the counter argument that this is a bank and that it is not a charitable organization. It is a bank, and there's no other entity within commerce that attaches profit to its motive more than a bank. Indeed, there will be a saying that all money, people don't put a cultural value on money. Money has only, well, financial value. And so there's several arguments to and fro. But I think the honourable member may be upset. I think he thinks that he is upset for another reason, but what he is upset about, he is anticipating public protests. And that's why he was able to be so amused. He is anticipating public protests. I think he may feel that there is something with this transaction that is not quite right. And if the honourable member feels that there is something that's not quite right, the honourable member feels that with some justification, because he is going to meet a public that will ask him, in spite of the cultural argument, why are you giving lands free to a bank? And on the past 2 occasions that lands were given free to a bank, it was the Caribbean Development Bank, of which Barbados, I repeat, is a founding member and continues its membership of that bank. And that bank has functioned around here for a long, long time. Now, this is a new appearance. This African bank is a new appearance. And one should not, or let me put it the other way, one should ask the public not to be distracted by the nationality of the bank. But one should be more attracted to the fact that it is a bank concerned about profit, making money. And if it is in the business of making money, in spite of its origins, the public will ask, why are you giving lands to a bank in spite of nationality? Now, have lands ever been given? And this is private, this is a private entity. The Caribbean Development Bank, within this context, is a public entity. It's a public corporation. It is owned by the governments. So that when the argument settles, I am not sure that the honourable member for St. George South is going to win this argument. In spite of the compelling cultural argument, very compelling, but it's a bank. It's concerned with profit. And so I say to the honourable member for St. George South that he will confront a public that will ask him many questions. And I hope that he will be able to answer those questions. I came here tonight, as he said he saw me walking, so when I walked in, he assumed that I was coming to oppose it. I came here to ask, before I saw the actual resolution, what was going to be the consideration. And when lawyers say consideration, we mean the price, what was going to be the price. The public now hears that the government of Barbados is giving these precious lands to a bank, free. They're not paying anything. And if there's any price, the price is that of investment. I read the document and I saw, or I did some research, and I saw that a hotel is going to be placed on these lands that used to house government buildings involved in service. And so we're now balancing, this is a policy decision, we're balancing one use of that land against the contemplated use. One, a bank which will pursue business for profit for that entity. And as I've said, I have not heard that the government is an investor in the project, so that one will assume that the government has no direct profit to make from the enterprise except the collection of taxes. So that what is the value? The question then becomes, what is the value, the monetary value, the financial value of this project to Barbados? Is it the presence of a large building on lands that used to house public service departments? Is it just this appearance? Is it something that augments the coastline? Well, it is not on the coast, but it's near enough to the coast, the coastline. What is government's gain here? As I said, and I repeat, it is a bank. So you now have to convince the public of Barbados as to the gain that Barbados makes. Is it just to have a building there? Is it just to have a hotel there? I think I saw somewhere that it will house the headquarters of the bank. Is it just to have the headquarters of the bank there? So that I therefore come to the public with my interpretation of these events. I beg your pardon, sir. My interpretation of these events, therefore, having considered all the arguments and trying to be as objective as one possibly can, the minister has a difficult job. And the government taking collective responsibility for this one, the government will have a very difficult job in convincing Barbadians that this is a project that is ultimately, operative word, ultimately in the best interests of this country. If someone speaks after me and says that the government is a shareholder, the position may be amended, because if the government is a shareholder, it means that the government is entitled to profits. If the government is not a shareholder, and I haven't heard that they are, if the government is not a shareholder, I would ask the government to prepare for the public inquiry as to what value does this bring to the taxpayers of this country? What value does this bring to the citizens of Barbados? As I've said, if you're just trying to attract investment to look pretty so that burnt out buildings can become new buildings, if that is the reason, I don't know that there's much gain to the revenue. As I said, the gain to the revenue may be the collection of taxes, but overall, do we part with lands in Bridgetown? Because this is Bridgetown, and not only is it Bridgetown, but it is coastal Bridgetown, on one of the most beautiful beaches in Barbados. And the public is now told that a bank is getting lands free along the coastline. Put a value on that land along there. I'm instructed that you're talking about $700 per square foot. That's part of the going rate along that area. $700 per square foot. So that I am not here to help the honorable member for St. George, and after the way he spoke, he would be surprised if I made that offer. I'm definitely not here to help him. But I want to help the people of Barbados to understand precisely what is going on here. That some of the most valuable lands in this country, and I repeat, subject to correction, $700 per square foot is being given away to a foreign entity. And if we, for the time being, ignore the cultural origins of that entity, the land is being given away to a foreign entity. As I've said before, the honorable member quite cleverly and interestingly tries to retrieve the argument by invoking the cultural argument. As to whether Barbadians will accept that, as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. But we go back to the times that we're in. There's the East Coast, the protests on the East Coast, and a government has a moral obligation to pay attention to public protests. There's the East Coast protests, there's the West Coast protests, whole town. There is the promise of the Garrison protests, the heritage area. There are plans for oistins as well. So these planned developments are not going to be smooth. They are going to meet with protests. They are meeting with protests. And I want to say to the government that these protests are legitimate. That you must not see a protester as a nuisance. People protest based on many moral and legal rights that they have. In this case, they're moral. People have a moral right. There's a moral entitlement among the local population to preserve the lands in a manner that meets their approval. Because ultimately, the government is the trustee of the interests of the people. And if there's protest, I would warn the government not to be surprised. But my forewarning to this government is that this transaction may meet much protest. And if this transaction meets protest, the government cannot say that it is illegitimate protest. As I have said, and I repeat, we have a responsibility to tell the people of Barbados, the government has the responsibility to do it. I have the responsibility to do it as leader of the opposition, to say to them that these very expensive lands are being alienated for free. It is my responsibility to say that. I cannot conceal that information from the public. How the public deals with it, we shall see. And if the public protests against the alienation of highly valued lands along Bay Street and Gemmots Lane, the government cannot say that it has not been warned. As to my own position, sir, I have difficulty with the transaction. As I said, if it were a charity, if it were a church, and the modern term these days is NGO. If it were an NGO, if it were an organization, for example, building a school for children or a place for disabled people, there would be no protest. There would be no protest. There was certainly no protest when the CDB got the lands free. So if the lands are going to a charity, to an NGO, to a church, I would have no difficulty. So in spite of the compelling cultural argument, I still think that a private entity motivated by profit, unless the people of this country can now be told that the government is going to get some very substantial financial return, I myself would have to join the protests against the alienation of lands gratuitously, free. I cannot support that. I cannot support that. And that is not to be betraying cultural ties. It's not. It is not a betrayal of cultural ties. It is a statement in support of business efficacy. If this is about business, it is a bad transaction. If this is about culture, it is not a good transaction because the entity is not charitable. It is not an NGO. It is not a church. And so the government's argument now weakens considerably. As I said, and I repeat, commercially, it's going to be very difficult to defend this. Culturally, less difficult to defend, but you can't defend it because it is not a charity. And less difficult to defend because the entity is concerned in business. Look at what they're building. And one must not be afraid of these troops. They're building a hotel. They're building headquarters, not for a church, they're building headquarters for a bank. Is the presence of another hotel and a bank's headquarters such a precious commodity for Barbadians that we must alienate a vast stretch of land just for that? But the other side may come and tell me that there's some financial arrangement to come. I haven't heard that. And if it were so, I expect that the Honourable Member for St. George South would have told us. So since the Honourable Member for St. George South has been unable to tell us that there is some generous financial stake, this one is very difficult to define. Permit me to repeat the last time, sir. The cultural argument is defeated. And the cultural argument is defeated by the commercial argument. It is defeated. I mean, I cannot find that the cultural argument constitutes a sufficient foundation to justify the transaction. Cannot. It cannot. So, Your Honor, I must register my opposition to it, and I am not afraid to register my opposition to it at the risk. Well, not at risk. I've heard the argument before that there's some anti-black stance that I'm taking. It is not an anti-black stance, but that's not even worthy of any discussion. Sometimes that is a convenient fallback position. I repeat, this is about business. And if it is about business, it is bad business for the government of Barbados. And the government of Barbados must not be allowed to pursue bad business in relation to this transaction. I am not going to speculate as to the places that the countries in which this bank operates. Not interested in that. Not interested in that. But we are hearing, sir, that it is a bank. And so, having said that, it would seem that this project now joins the other projects that are causing discomfort and protests, certainly promoting protests among Barbadians. This one joins it. And it is not because of what I say, but it is because of how people feel and how people will feel that we are losing another highly valued asset, a piece of Bridgetown, and that we are giving it to a bank. We are not giving it to a church. And I need to repeat that. We are giving it to a bank. We are not giving it to a church. The commercial argument against this project defeats the cultural argument that favors this project. In other words, the commercial argument against it outweighs the cultural argument that favors it. And that is language with which you're very familiar, sir. And so, I will join if there is local protests. My views must now join with that local protest. One doesn't expect to hear a politician say that he associates with issues not for popularity, but this is one in which I would say the issue of popularity does not arise here. There are times when principle must outweigh the pursuit of popularity. And there's a large principle at stake here, and I can't tell Bajans how to think. I believe it has been my duty to explain it to Barbadians. And having explained it to Barbadians, Barbadians will now decide if they feel as strongly about this transaction as they feel about the whole town transaction and as they feel about the East Coast work, because the East Coast is more about works than it is about a transaction. Whole town is about a transaction. This Bridgetown one is about a transaction. The Garrison one will be about a transaction as well. And so the government is now going to meet a public resistance. My role here has been educative, and not only educative, but my role is that of representing the interests of those who may find opposition to this. And I repeat, Your Honor, I must have sufficient courage to oppose it, and I do. And I repeat, for absolute clarity, the commercial argument against the project defeats the cultural argument which favors the project. I don't know that I can say much more on it. except to say, to wish the government well, and if there's protests, be prepared to meet the protests. I think I have done my duty. Your Honor, I want to thank you for the opportunity and to let the record reflect that my views are in opposition to this resolution that has come here tonight. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I really thought that our pain and torture would have ended when the Speaker last spoke in this chamber. But unfortunately, he has chosen to come back again and ramble and reiterate and confuse the issue so much, demonstrating only that, as always, he doesn't prepare, he doesn't pay attention to anything. There are some facts that, had he only paid attention to even the slightest of media reports in relation to Afreximbank, that he would not have come in here and treated us to, I'm not going to call it any bad words, treated us to what he just did, sir. Mr. Speaker, there is a partnership agreement between CARICOM and the Afreximbank. It was widely publicized that Afreximbank wanted to make significant investments in the region, but also wanted to bring significant investments in the region and business opportunities. So there are not a lot of people who've been willing to come to us and say, we want to bring business your way. Many people come to say we want to do business, but they never come to put in any of their own money. Afreximbank, when it started, was worth $30 million. I know it is worth many, many billions of dollars, representing the collective purchasing power, sir, of a region that we should, of a continent that we should be proud of. So that is the first pillar on which this resolution rides. We have a CARICOM partnership agreement with Afreximbank. The second pillar, Mr. Speaker, is that Barbados, the state, has a headquarters agreement with Afreximbank. All of these things have been splattered all over the press, but obviously the opposition has been in dreamland. So we not only have a CARICOM partnership agreement, we have a headquarters agreement between Barbados and Afreximbank. Let me remind, because you gotta know something about something. Let me remind the Honourable Leader of the Opposition of this. Barbados has headquartered here numerous regional and international organizations. We have PAHO, we have the United Nations, we have CARDI, we have CXC. Mr. Speaker, in most, if not all of those cases, whenever there is a headquarters agreement, it is the responsibility of the host state to provide the headquarters. So we had to build PAHO's headquarters. We had to build CXC's headquarters, sir. Not only do we have to build it, we have to maintain it. Remember, the Minister of Foreign Affairs could tell you that. So what is the difference, Mr. Speaker? In our headquarters agreements, we spend the money, we provide the land, we build the buildings, and then we maintain them forever and ever, amen. In this instance, Mr. Speaker, we have a headquarters agreement with Afreximbank, but we're not being required to build the headquarters, sir. This land, I think, is valued at around $17 million by the Land Tax Department. There's no way that we could build any headquarters for any multinational bank for $17 million. We can't even build a school for $17 million, sir. So by giving Afreximbank this land, we are benefiting because we don't have to go to do the rest. If we had to do the rest, it would cost us tens of millions of dollars. In this instance, all we're saying is, look, we have the acres agreement, but we're going to give you the land, you do the rest. Now, to me, that makes perfect sense. But let me tell the honorable member, you know, one of the reasons why you host international organizations in your homeland is because you get tremendous dollar value added. You get the staff who come here to work. You have the conferences that are held here. They rent houses. They buy food. And on top of that, the Afro-Exim Bank is planning to spend in the region of 150 million US dollars on that site. 150 million US dollars, 300 million Barbados dollars. Yesterday we spoke, when the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs spoke about the hotels. He talked about how much money was being spent in the hotel sector. The objection that came from the opposition is, well, I like it by being built by foreigners. Kind of nonsense we get treated to here. Absolute rubbish. These people are coming, we are only putting the land on the table, and they're going to spend $150 million on it. That's going to employ Barbadians. We need business hotels, and they're going to build one. Now, what could be wrong with that? The member can't understand what it is that we'll be getting, and he talks about what value is there in that for us, and that we're selling it to a bank. What's the relevance of that? We are making an investment by giving this bank $17 million in value, and in return, we're getting a long-term commercial relationship with them that will benefit Barbados for many years to come. But, Mr. Speaker, I sometimes think the honourable member operates in dreamland. The honourable member argues that that land is valued at $700 a square foot. $700 a square foot. Now, Mr. Speaker, that land is not on the beach. Not on the beach. But it is valued at $700 a square foot. You know, the honourable member has to own the things that he inherits. He got to own what he inherits, sir. So he says that land is worth $70 million, $700 a square foot. So I did some maths, and I'm not very good at it, so one of y'all can help me out here. Sir, we are giving the Afro-Exim Bank 2.037 hectares. 2.037 hectares. That is 219,000 square feet. 216? 219,000 square feet of land. Multiply that by $700 a square foot, and tell me if you don't get $147 million. Let me, $147 million Barbados dollars is what he's saying that site is valued at. $147 million. Well, good Lord, I do not know of any place in Barbados where you could get land that is not on the beach for $147 million. I wish that we had land values that we could get $147 million for it. But to show you how absurd that assertion is, the valuers in the land tax department, people who know about valuing, because he don't know about value. He don't even value relationships. Because he done this one. He done with me. And he put up people out of the party they joined, so he don't know about relationships. The land tax value was valued by RBRA. It's only $17 million. So I mean, he's saying a horrible thing about our professional valuers. He's saying that they're so bad that they can't see that this land is worth $143 million. $143 million. But let me say this, you see. He has to own what he's inherited. He has to eat what he has killed. And the reason I say that is as follows. In 2016, his administration, remember, said this land is not on the beach. This land is on the other side of the road. In 2016, his administration signed an agreement to sell beachfront land just across the street. Guess for how much, sir? $30 a square foot. $30 a square foot.
No.
Beachfront land.
No.
His administration.
No.
Less than 10 years ago.
Shame.
Where was the $700 a square foot?
Shame.
And that is on the beach.
No. Shame. No. Oh.
I can tell the math, sir.
Oh no.
We are giving Afrexim Bank just over 2 hectares. His administration sold to that particular person 0.6626 hectares for $2.2 million. That's what we did. They sold over 0.6 of a hectare of land, sir. We selling we giving away 2 hectares and getting a return on it. They sell 0.6 hectares for $2.2 million. $2.2 million. That is the kind of arrangement that he likes, you see. But he could come in here with this calculation that we should be selling it for $700 million, sir. It is absurd. And he has to own it. He has to explain if it is valued so much, land that isn't even on the beach. If it is valued so much, how come his people, the people that he loves, and the people in whose bosom he now lays, can sell actual beachfront land for $30 a square foot? Explain that to us. Explain that to the people of Barbados, sir. Mr. Speaker, this is a legitimate arrangement. It is an arrangement that will bring much credit to Barbados. It is an arrangement, sir, that will clean up a site that I think Polisarians last occupied that building probably over 20 years ago. Over 20 years ago. I remember when it was at Cave Hill, and it was going for my enabling grant, a little $1,000 at the gate at the end of the law school. That is the building I intended to get it. That is the building, sir. So, I would like the honourable member to reflect on a few things. One, the value that we attribute to it is not a value that we came up with. It is a value that has been determined by the Barbados Revenue Authority. It is their value. If your member could bring a valuation for $143 million, that would be such a miracle. But as usual, this is hot air. Secondly, we are getting a tremendous bang for our buck here. For $17 million, because that is what we are putting into this project. We're not claiming any part of it, but we're giving them the land. For $17 million, we are, what's the percentage return on that? Huh? We're getting $150 million in the ground. We're getting people landing at Grantley Adams. We're getting people coming here for meetings and staying in hotels and renting houses and renting cars and eating in our restaurants and hiring our people as maids and cleaners, and they're going to our dentists, our doctors, and even our lawyers. All of those things are added to it, sir. I support this. I'm not surprised your member does not support it, because just 2 days ago when he spoke about it in this chamber, he behaved as though it was something filthy, something nasty and underhanded. But before he left the chamber that day, or as soon as he left the chamber really, because he never came back, we were able to lay this resolution. There's nothing sinister about this. There's nothing underhanded about this. There's a CARICOM agreement and there's a headquarters agreement. And the headquarters agreement says that we have to make arrangements for their accommodation in Barbados. They're also entitled to all of the immunities and privileges under the legislation. It is all transparent, Mr. Speaker. But the honourable member is steeped in folly, and at this time of the night, he chooses to visit us with it some more. I'm obliged to.
Honourable Member for St. James Central.
Mr. Speaker, I am very grateful for the opportunity to share perspective on this matter. And the matter, Mr. Speaker, sir, arises in the most unfortunate of circumstances when the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, I noted how he laughed and rejoiced. He rocked back in his chair and chuckled, and to the point where he had to pull out a washcloth to wipe his brow. When the Honourable Member for St. George quite rightly pointed out that in a previous contribution in this place during this week, the Honourable Member attacked the idea of the African Bank making this transaction and the government being party to this transaction. And all that the Honourable Member for St. George South said, Mr. Speaker, is true. To the point where I turned to my friend, the member for Christchurch East Central, and said, you know, I not only understand the anger on the part of the Honourable Member for St. George South, but I asked him if he remembered the movie John Wick, when the owner of the hotel, I can't remember what they call it now, asked the question, oh John, what have you done? And tonight I say to the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, or I would say if I was not here, oh Ralph, what have you done? Because he has opened up the ire of all right-thinking black people, Mr. Speaker, on a matter about which there can be no legal basis, no moral basis, no cultural basis for a divide. I'm going to deal with them, Mr. Speaker. First of all, the Honourable Attorney General, the learned Attorney General of Barbados is absolutely right. As of December 2024, the Afro-Exim Bank had 53 participating African member states and 12 CARICOM member states, among which Barbados is numbered. So to his first question, and I know that, you know, there's this constant facade or veneer of using the word law. Well, as a lawyer, I would ask the question. Well, I am not going to get into quality, experience, none of that. I'm just going to say that's what I hear. And the question is asked, but it is never, Mr. Speaker, sir, supported by the rigor that the profession, of which I too am a part, requires. The profession requires rigor in the use of language. You don't come to the People's Parliament, Mr. Speaker, or to the court, magistrate court, high court, or court of appeal. You don't come to these formal institutions and use language the same way you would use it in a market. So if the Honourable Member asks who are the members of the Afro-Exim Bank, the Foreign Affairs Minister of Barbados tells you there are 53 African member states and 12 CARICOM members as of December 2024, pursuant, Mr. Speaker, sir, to the partnership agreement with the CARICOM community and that was ratified, Mr. Speaker, sir. Now, if you want to hear about prospective members, because there are more than 12 in CARICOM, and I'm going to come to the significance of that too, then there will be the government of Jamaica and the government of Trinidad and Tobago, who are at a prospective member point, but they are not members. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the absence of rigor. The Honourable Member comes here in a speech, give me a chance, Pedro, in a speech, and without any evidence whatsoever, and I'm going to pause, Mr. Speaker, to make the point because I know why it was done. This was done, and you know what gives it away? Again, the veneer, the facade which says, oh, well, you know, I really come here to educate. I'm in an educative mood, an educative tone. Educate my eye. The Honourable Member is seeking to perpetrate a political mischief. He is seeking to perpetrate a political mischief. And the political mischief is to put it out there in the public domain without a shred of evidence, that the land in question that has been lying idle since I was a little boy, and I'm over 50 now, I never seen none upon it, except for some old buildings, sir, and one or two old vehicles that I remember in the last administration when they brought out the three-wheel ambulances, that I had to excoriate them all about in the floor of this house, that the clerks at the table never let me forget how I lambasted them because they came out here with three-wheel ambulances. And two or three of those three-wheel ambulances they were used to use in Ramadan in Pakistan, sir, to put the lamp on and run it down the road. I give it to us as an ambulance. And if you go in there in that long grass and thing in the back of the same thing, you will see on the same compound, you will see, Mr. Speaker, sir, a few of those abandoned vehicles. A three-wheel hearse. No, Mr. Speaker, sir, no, I didn't come, no, I'm very serious about this now. That was to digress. But the absence of rigor, the honourable member, without a shred of evidence, introduces into the debate for the purposes of the press, for the purpose of political mischief, for them to publish abroad, to noise the mischief in the public, that land worth $700 a square foot, which, as he said, we're alienating. In other words, we give away something that precious to the public, the government, the people of Barbados, the heritage, all of that, as we come in with, $700 a square foot. Where is the evidence of that? On the other hand, the Attorney General of Barbados has, and the member for St. George South have together a BRA land tax valuation. What's valuations again?
land tax valuation.
$17 million. But if it was $700 a square foot, Mr. Speaker, sir, let us do the arithmetic, because the honourable member does not submit to the requirements of intellectual rigor. And I will hold his feet to the fire on it, because he's doing grave justice to Mr. Barr's party and to himself in the process. Grave injustice. Mr. Speaker, there was 700 square feet, if it was $700 a square foot, we are talking about 219,000 square feet, sir. By $700, which according to my calculation comes to $153 million. That is what, if we were to sell the land at the price the honourable member is suggesting it is worth, $153 million for that land. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, what is not in dispute in this House between any side, and what cannot be disputed because it is a matter of record, is that the Afro-Exim Bank wants to make an investment which is worth $300 million. No, Mr. Speaker, I don't come a grandstand. I may have gone to Brumley. I mean, it's quite point. Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, I know that if you're going to sell something for $153 million, and then a man come and build $300 million worth on it, Mr. Speaker, sir, why still good? I got $150 million. So, however, if you do it his way, or if you do it our way, Mr. Speaker, sir, $150 million, what is it that he is quarreling about? Or is he saying to the country as a whole, no, that which he said to the people in Ostins? They are not worth $5 million and the country is not worth $150 million. That is the absence of rigor to which I refer, Mr. Speaker. It is a shameful thing. No, I said in the House, in the budget, that financial literacy is necessary. I was speaking to a different category of Barbadian society, and perhaps it is not limited. It perhaps needs to be extended. Mr. Speaker, sir, I go further. I now start trespassing on matters of great public importance. What has not been said in this debate, sir, but what was, again, I said to the honourable member for Christchurch, is, sometimes it only takes one sentence for you to realize that another game is being played. Oh, well, if they could show me the benefits. Because if you looked at the posture and listened to what was said by the honourable member, you know, Mr. Speaker, so he had literally to be dragged to the point where he took a position. He was a bit of this, he was a bit of that. On the other hand, this, on the other hand, that. Perhaps this, perhaps that. The word waffle came to my mind, and here was reduced to being a pancake house. Waffle upon waffle upon waffle. Well, Mr. Speaker, sir, the absence of rigor. He asked, well, if I could hear about any benefits, perhaps. Well, let's talk for a little bit about the benefits. It is no secret to the people of the Caribbean. Professor Benedict Orama, who at the time of us entering into the partnership was the man in charge of the Afro-Exim Bank, came here and publicly proclaimed that the bank was committing itself to this region to the tune of 1.5 billion United States dollars, billion with a B, Mr. Speaker, sir, as a point of departure in terms of the economic partnership for this region. And Mr. Speaker, upon the completion of all the members of CARICOM ratifying, and you will remember I began by pointing out that 12 members ratified up to December, upon the others coming on board, sir, that which the Afro-Exim Bank commits to this region is 3 billion United States dollars. I invite the leader of the Democratic Labour Party to tell me anywhere in the world where there is an entity, howsoever described, that is prepared to place at the disposal of this region 3 billion United States dollars in development financing. And in spite of himself, instinctively just now he started to tap the table because he agreed with me too. There's nowhere in the world, Mr. Speaker. So if his argument is that if he could see the benefit, that's the first benefit. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other benefits. A serious political entity sitting in the chair of leadership of opposition in the country, which essentially is a man at first slip, would do a little homework before he come in here. It isn't hard, Mr. Speaker, sir, to discover. And if he did not know, yes, there's some political tensions around the budget, but he could have picked up the phone and said, Kerry, are there any other entities, any other benefits that could be derived from this thing? But he did not want to know. He wouldn't submit himself to ask a question of anybody. Lord know it all. Lord know it all. Going to the Democratic Labour Party, know nothing about the institution since he left it for the second time. When last he left it for the second time, and you back up everything. Lord know it all. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it then comes to pass, or it must now come to pass, that I have to let the House know that in addition to this, the Afro-Exim Bank brings to the Caribbean and brings to Barbados in particular a number of subsidiaries. There is a group called, there's an entity called Afrex Insure, which is a pan-African insurance entity working as a subsidiary to the Afro-Exim Bank. And what is it doing, Mr. Speaker, sir? Cargo insurance, construction insurance, energy sector insurance, commercial insurance, Mr. Speaker. So that which we are trying to build out, that network between CARICOM and Africa for the business development of this region, Mr. Speaker, can be done in the very real setting of financial insurance. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the honourable member asked about benefits. You know, sir, that the African Union has identified CARICOM and the diaspora down here as the sixth dimension of the African continent. It is no longer, the African Union is no longer defined as West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, North Africa, and Central Africa. There is also CARICOM. We are the sixth dimension. And it was in that capacity that the Prime Minister and I would have gone to Ethiopia for the African Union heads meeting, because she is chair of CARICOM. So that for the first time a few weeks ago rather, CARICOM was part of the African Union meeting. You all remember now he can't deal with the thing, so he gone along home yet again. Does not want to be educated, does not want to understand, commit his political mischief and go along home. And don't have the courage or capacity to sit down and take a few lashes, but can give enough. Anyhow, the point is, Mr. Speaker, sir. So the other subsidiary, the other benefit, Mr. Speaker, is the Pan-African payment system. I made the point about the sixth dimension because of the fact that the bank is now a partner with us in trying to pull this region together. When I say the region, sir, CARICOM and Africa together as one region. That's why you first begin by saying it is the sixth dimension. But you can't just pull it together. There are some fundamentals that we know exist. First of all, the people must be able to do business. And if it is that you're doing business, then you have to be able to have a payment settlement system that allows for, at this point, e-commerce to take place. Part of that which is we are benefiting from as a subsidiary of the Africa Exim Bank, sir, is the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. The Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which is about ensuring that there's no intermediary that we got to go through, but that the African purchaser can say that by way of e-commerce transaction, he or she wants to get the clothing that is being made by my constituents in Fitz Village that want to be able to sell not only in the Caribbean, but across into Africa as well. And I ain't got to worry about whether the US or anybody else is going to facilitate the transaction. Mr. Speaker, sir, and they have put $10 billion towards the support of the participation in that Pan-African settlement system. Now, sir, in the end of the day, the last benefit really is this country, and if the honourable member could take off his blinkers for a little while and just think of Barbados' well-being. This country is now poised to be able to set itself up as the financial capital of the Caribbean. We have here the Inter-American Development Bank. We have here the Caribbean Development Bank. We host here the Caribbean Development Fund. There are discussions ongoing with my friend, the Finance Minister and the Prime Minister, also for a World Bank office to be here, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have the headquarters. CAF is CAF is here, the Latin American Bank. And then, Mr. Speaker, sir, Africa Exim Bank has its headquarters for this region here. And they are only seeking now to flesh it out further by building out around it the trade center, the hotel, and whatever else it is that is supposed, and the Africa Exim Bank offices that will service this country and the rest of the region. Mr. Speaker, sir, these are good things. And if you are going to say that by way of alienation of the land, that these are the benefits that come to us, sir, I think that the benefits far outweigh any burden. And Mr. Speaker, if it is that the honourable member was to, or anybody else was to insist on sale, we would be holding feet to fire in order to get $150 million. But I don't know how you look a gift horse in the mouth. I was not trained that way, because when we were on bended knee in COVID, the same African platform came to our assistance, Mr. Speaker, sir, when others were saying that we could wait, that our children could wait, And if they died from COVID, then let them die. The African payment, the African procurement platform was made available to us for equipment, medical supplies, Mr. Speaker, sir, and most of all, vaccines. At the same price. You're talking a continent of 2 billion people. A continent of 2 billion people. And because we small, sir, we can't put in a big order, but so therefore it will cost more for us to get it. We got it at the same price that they pay for it with 2 billion people. And are you saying then, sir, that as black people from the South now, man, this is second chapter now, tonight. I get the first one when it was in the budget. And this country has to start getting real about this. I defy anybody in Barbados to tell me that there's a shred of decency in the thought that when the African continent came to our assistance, when others that did not look like us told us that you can stop one side and dead. The African continent comes to your assistance, ensures that you live, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is an existential matter, that you continue to exist on God's green earth. And you're going to insist, sir, you're going to insist that you must get the pound of flesh. He likes Shakespeare. I must get my pound of flesh. Huh? No, there's something vulgar about it. There's something vulgar about it. That the African continent says, as they say in the book of Matthew, even and they do unto the least of these. They looked at us in the Caribbean. We were naked, they clothed us. We were sick, they sought to visit upon us. Mr. Speaker, sir. And we must now look to extract everything we can out of them. When nobody was looking for us, and I'm going to hear it here in the Parliament of Barbados, what are the benefits? But there's no ordinary transaction with the commercial banks like Royal and Scotia and them there. There's a bank that has come here, sir, to offer that which nobody else has offered to the Caribbean in the context of 1.5 billion United States dollars. And another 1.5 billion when the rest of the region is fully finished ratifying this here. The only thing that stands between us and that is bureaucracy and political will. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, we got to get real now. And if this has to be the line in the sand drawn between those who will hold back Barbados from getting the benefits that we could get, and I don't only mean the other hotel, I don't only mean, and the hotel is vital because employing people to build is Bajans who can build it. Employing people, Mr. Speaker, after it is open to keep Barbadians in a form of business. A trade center, Mr. Speaker, sir, that will bring people here to do business. And when they come here, Mr. Speaker, sir, are they not going to eat? So therefore, Barbadian people in the food and beverage sector get money. When they come here, Mr. Speaker, sir, are they not going to sleep somewhere? And therefore, Barbadian people in the accommodation sector get money. When they come here, Mr. Speaker, sir, are they not going to recreate themselves in places, sir, around the coastline of this country, preferably on the west coast of St. James, but some will go up on Oysters in Christchurch too? No, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a very serious matter. Because what we are seeing unfold here is a developmental vision. I want you, Mr. Speaker, sir, to recognize that. We are seeing here an opportunistic politics of the Democratic Labour Party, that you whip up false frenzy in the hope of getting a vote. And what does it profit a man to win a vote if in the process he loses his soul and destroys a country, Mr. Speaker? Because what we are seeing on the other side of the argument is a political party in government which is saying to this country, let us get real. We can no longer continue with this nonsense of believing that the sun sets and rises for us by gazing to the north of the world, because a Napoleonic figure has arisen in the north, and the north itself can't even agree on what they used to agree on. All the alliances that they thought they had since World War II have now been dismantled or strained. 200% this morning's news. If you're going to sell liquor from Europe into the United States, 200% tariff, Mr. Speaker. Canada and the United States that were one can't even agree if electricity is to be sold to New York City. Do you understand, Mr. Speaker, that New York itself was told they can't get electricity without a tariff? That's the world we now live in. And while those great powers fight with one another and can afford to do so, when elephants fight in the jungle, a wise ant hides in the grass and looks for other ants to partner with, which is what we do. So the people of the South are speaking with one voice. And when for years, Erbar, Michael Manley, Trinidad, Eric Williams, all of those illustrious predecessors were talking about South-South cooperation. I heard the mealy-mouthed waffling in here, trying to put together two words in response to the very excellent piloting of this bill by the Honourable Member for St. George South, sir. There's no philosophical anchor over there. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know it is late in the night and I perhaps should not go on, but let me say this. This is fundamental, and this is about a divide. I've seen it clearly about where one party wants to go and how they want to mamagai and use people in Barbados for their own narrow ends, and how there's a development agenda for this country that can employ people, that can keep the Barbados economy growing and buoyant and give us opportunities in the, this is the largest market anywhere in the world that we talk about when we talk about Africa, and growing at a rapid rate. And all of them young. The greatest cadre of young people to be found anywhere. Black people in Africa. Natural fit for us. And we have this antediluvian nonsense taking place. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wholeheartedly support this, and if it is that this now got to become a national noise, I stand on the side of the government and I am ready to bear them in Denmark or anywhere else.
Yeah.
Honourable Member for Christmas.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to join this debate on a most fundamental matter. Because you will recall, sir, I made a point in the budget presentation that we presented the Covenant of Hope to Barbados, sir, on the 5th of May of 2016. And the first principle that we established, sir, was that we want to create a new national consciousness, sir, for how Bajans saw themselves in a world that is increasingly becoming more turbulent, and that we must make sure that we proceed with confidence, sir. Fast forward, sir, to 2018, we won the election, sir, and as a cabinet and as a government, we agreed that we will engage aggressively, sir, with the African continent. Fast forward to 2019, sir, the Prime Minister, I believe she would have met the President of Ghana at the UN General Assembly in 2018, as well as the President of Kenya. And both of those gentlemen, sir, visited Barbados in 2019. Receptions were held right here in this Parliament, sir, for the Prime Minister, the President of Ghana, sorry, and the President of Kenya, sir, at this parliamentary location. I do not remember, sir, the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, at any of those two receptions. I am prepared to be wrong, but if any member in here could recall seeing him at any of those two receptions for any of the presidents of those countries, let me know, sir. I will come back here and I will humbly apologize, sir. I will humbly apologize. No, sir. We also opened the mission in Ghana, sir, and the mission in Kenya. Further evidence, sir, of our commitment of creating a new national consciousness so that Bajans don't feel as if, sir, that you only got to look north to exist in this world. And as the Honourable Member for St. James Central just indicated, sir, when we were on our knees, sir, during COVID, who came to our assistance, sir? It's the same thing with the Cubans, you know, sir. He asked the question about the Cubans, and he got the answer. He just got the answer in terms of who helped Barbados and the region, sir. We, the 6th region of the African Union, sir, has adopted. And so this is extremely fundamental, sir, to how this government versus the Democratic Labour Party, sir. This is fundamental. This is a fissure, sir, in this relationship. But I go further, sir. The Honourable Member spoke to, the professor came here. We had the first Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, sir, in 2022, I believe it was, sir, right here at LESC. We just come out of COVID, sir, right here. Professor Benedict Orama, I remember, sir, the Prime Minister said the President is coming, and I'm to go to the airport to meet him, sir. And when I met the President, sir, I thought it was Marcus Garvey, sir, alive in the flesh, sir. And the President of the African Exim Bank, if anybody go on Google now, sir, Benedict Orama. Google search Benedict Orama. Google search Marcus Garvey, sir. And when you look at the two, sir, you would swear that Benedict Orama has to be some grandson, grandchild, something of Marcus Garvey, sir. And therefore, when we determine, sir, that this is how we are going to chart our future, sir, that we will do so. I met the President, sir. I welcomed him to Barbados. And we set, and to be honest, sir, today, as the Honourable Member for St. James Central indicated, we met with the Finance Minister from Nigeria in this Parliament today, sir, as well as the President of Sierra Leone in this Parliament today, sir. But you know, the Honourable Member was nowhere to be found on the premises of Parliament, sir. There's a history, sir, of the absence of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition from the premises of Parliament whenever anybody from Africa, sir, visits this place, sir. A King's Council does not want to associate with anybody, sir, from Africa. But this Barbados Labour Party, sir, we follow on because this is how we're going to change the future, sir. He spoke about Holtown, and I swear to God, sir, I swear to God, I am sorry that it is the resolution here for Gemma's Lane. It should be the resolution that we're taking for Holtown, sir, to give to the African Exim Bank, because the Honourable Member needs to understand, sir, he needs to understand that investment in Barbados, sir, is not only for white foreigners, sir. It's not only for white foreigners. He's ashamed, sir, of himself. Of himself. No, sir, I feel really strongly about this here because every time, sir, he gets up in here, utters nonsense, sir. We as a party, sir, we agreed that we are going to chart a new future for our country and to show our young people, sir, that we must disavow ourselves of this idea of the colonial master and this superior race and all this type of thing, sir, and that you must cut out the disinformation, sir, about Africa. And that is why we set about making sure that we talk with one another directly, sir, and we will continue as a government, sir, to do that. But I go further, sir. I go further. I'll be brief, sir. Last year, last year, sir, last year, sir, notice was given in this Parliament of the African Export-Export Bank Bill 2024, sir. Notice was given on the 23rd of January 2024. I want the public to understand this here. The 23rd of January 2004, sir. 2024, sir. The bill will provide for the implementation of the agreement of the establishment of a partnership between member states of the community and the African Export-Import Bank, sir, and B, agreement between the government of Barbados and the African Export-Import Bank concerning the location, sir, of the Caribbean Community Office of the African Export-Import Bank. That was led in this Parliament, sir. Notice was given on the 23rd. A week later, sir, I stood down there and led a debate in this Parliament, sir. Members contributed. When I checked the minutes, sir, if you check the minutes of the 30th of January 2024, sir, and you see who was present, and you see when it was absent, sir, lo and behold, sir, as I said, he wasn't here when the president of Kenya was here, sir. He wasn't here when the president of Ghana was here, sir. He wasn't here today when the finance minister from Nigeria was here. No, he wasn't here today, sir, when the president of Sierra Leone was here. We debated a bill in here as part of the government's commitment as to how we will change the national consciousness, sir, and he wasn't here. He was not in the minutes of the House said so. Not me, it's the minutes of the House, sir. But here are the things, sir. It went to the Senate. It passed the Senate, sir, the 7th of February 2024. Now, all of us trying to figure out, well, what happened? What happened? You know, 5 days later, sir, you know what happened? The honourable member crossed the floor and decided that he can become the leader of the opposition. I submit to this Parliament, sir, that the honourable leader of the opposition, he cares nothing about Africans, black people, or anything. Because I swear to God, sir, I swear to God, he has a fundamental problem, sir. A fundamental problem with the government seeking to restore a relationship, sir, that was severed right out there, sir, by the careenage. When we took down Nelson and replaced it with that monument out there, sir, to represent the fact that the separated families right out there, sir. And this Parliament, as the Prime Minister would tell us all the time, in 1661 passed the slave code that became the template for how slaves were treated right across the Americas, sir. I know that he would have supported that as a King's Counsel, sir. Because today, he does not want us to associate with that which we came from, sir. And I'm ashamed that he would come in this chamber and question the government for wanting to work closer with people that we have partnered with, sir. And we want Bajans, sir, young boys and girls to grow up in this country knowing, sir, that people of African descent must be respected globally, sir. And this government will not stop until that happens, sir. Now, Mr. Speaker, I said it was going to be short, and I promise not to think. But this, I swear to the people of Barbados, this is not a debate just about land and investment, because when the geriatric hospital is finished in Waterford, sir, the same African Export Bank is going to build a conference center at the existing site of the geriatric hospital, sir. Nobody else, sir, the African Export Bank is going to do that. You understand? And therefore, I am saying to Barbadians, when this Barbados, they've already sets the tone, let us appreciate it. We can talk, sir. We can talk. The same thing is going to happen with St. Anne's and these other sites, sir. We're going to have a conversation. By the end of the day, sir, we have to move forward with confidence as black people, sir, quite frankly, to ensure, sir, that our young people understand that they're not worth any less than anybody else in the world, sir, and that any Bajan, sir, boy or girl could go any part of the world and make things happen and change for the better, sir. And that is what this Barbados Labour Party is talking about a new national consciousness, sir. So I don't mind the leader of the opposition. I don't mind the leader of the opposition. we are going to do the work, sir, in the trenches to make sure that we serve good examples for what is possible for the future of this country. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Mr. Speaker, let me be
Honourable
brief
Member for St. George South.
because the hour is late.
Very late.
And I want to
Very
thank my colleagues, member for St. Joseph, St. James Central, and member for Christ Church East Central, who supported on behalf of the entire team this very important resolution. Mr. Speaker, I will end by saying, historically, Barbados has been separated from our African nations only by colonialism. And Mr. Speaker, investment and trade is a way, or one of the ways to rebuild economic unity. I will end with a quote with the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, and he said, "We face neither east nor west, we face forward." Barbados continues to go forward with its future growth with Africa, rather than relying solely on past relationships with Western nations. While we will never ever say to the world that we will not recognize the importance of the Western nations to our growth, the road to our Atlantic destiny and regaining our Atlantic destiny was demonstrated tonight by our members and with this resolution. Mr. Speaker, this is the way forward. We face neither west nor east. We face forward. And with those words, Mr. Speaker, I beg that this resolution now pass.
The question is that this resolution do now pass. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This resolution stands passed. Honourable member for St. Joseph.
Mr. Speaker, speaking on the adjournment, we've had, I think, probably 4 weeks, 4 solid weeks of parliamentary exercise. All of the nights have not been long, but certainly this has been a challenge, I think, for all of us. We have been away from our ministries for the most part, our families, our constituencies as well. But I think that the public of Barbados has seen what governance is firsthand and has seen the administration of the Barbados Labour Party operating at its finest. We have to thank, Mr. Speaker, all of the individuals who have serviced these sittings, including these more recent marathon sittings. We often do not reflect, other than at Christmas, about the many individuals and their contributions to keeping the machinery of Parliament flowing. That includes an entire raft of people, some clerical, some administrative, some are not, our caterers, the very thoughtful ladies and gentlemen who serve us our meals and take care of us on a daily basis, all of the staff of Parliament, and of equal importance, Mr. Speaker, are those individuals who stand vigilant on these premises. And I'm referring specifically to the members of the Barbados Police Service. Just thinking about the opposition when I said royal. The members of the Barbados Police Service, all of them have allowed us the opportunity to be here and to serve our country at this level. So let me, on behalf of yourself, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all of us, even on behalf of the opposition, let me thank them all for their hard work, their support, and their dedication and commitment to duty. I beg to move, Mr. Speaker, that we adjourn Parliament until Monday, 31st of March at 10 in the morning.
The question is that this honourable chairman be adjourned until Monday, the 31st of March, 2025 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands adjourned until Monday, the 31st of March, 2025 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.